This beautiful chair used to be a real mess. Have you ever rescued a piece of wicker that had paint flaking off, thinking that you might repaint it someday, but you were really dreading all the prep work and all the painting and spray painting and mess involved? Well, here's an easy way to paint distressed wicker that will lock down all that chipping paint and add wonderful color, and it will be a tough finish that will not scratch off. We call this paint formula wax paint, and you can apply it to wicker with an ordinary toothbrush, and you can change it from chippy, flaking, and drab wicker into something you'll be proud to decorate with. So here's how our chair started. We almost passed it by at the flea market, but for $5 we couldn't resist, and after all it was in pretty good shape except for the paint. And we also knew this chair would be a good candidate for the waxy paint formula we had once used on a wooden door with beautiful results. So what is wax paint? Wax paint is 50% paint. In this case we used Waverly chalk paint and 50% clear wax, which is also by Waverly and is a non-toxic water-based liquid that will give your finished projects a nice sheen and a durable top coat. Oh, and what about that chalk paint? Waverly is an acrylic chalk paint, so you could add acrylic craft paint to it to adjust the color without losing that chalk texture. And you just add a little bit at a time and you make brand new custom colors. In fact, our final color reminded us of rustic turquoise. Okay, so let's get started. First, we brush the surface with this hard 2-inch bristle brush. We brush it just enough to knock off the loose paint, but not enough to shred the natural wicker underneath. Then we pour equal amounts of paint and liquid wax into a tray, and we begin mixing a little at a time with our toothbrush. By mixing as we go, we know how much wax is in the paint because the wax looks white and it's really clear, so you won't know where it is once you put it into your paint. But you can always add a little more paint now and then if you like, but generally the 50-50 mix works pretty well, and we like mixing it up as we go. So you lightly brush the wax paint into the surface and into the crevices of your wicker. And you'll be amazed at how well a toothbrush works. It's small enough to get into the crevices and it holds a lot of paint, but it distributes it evenly. And we also used artist brushes at times. And we also used different colors on this chair, like yellow, orange, and gold for fun design. Now the blue paint was easiest because the chair was already a shade of blue, so if we missed a crevice here and there, it really didn't detract from the overall design. But when we started putting gold on some of this wicker, it took a lot more paint to cover the blue. So if you're going to jump from one end of the color spectrum to the other, allow yourself some time to build up the colors that are really going to be hard to cover. If you've never painted with a toothbrush before, you really ought to give it a try, especially if you're working on wicker. Most of the flowers on the seat of this chair were painted with acrylic craft paints mixed with liquid wax, and it took many layers to cover that blue. If you want to do a fun design like this on wicker, it's easy enough, but you'll want to allow time to build up the colors. This painted seat took about 2.5 hours, and we did an awful lot of it with that toothbrush. To give the seat a touch of antique charm, we used a golden tan with a darker brown edge, and when that was dry, we went over it with yellow. Both the brown and the yellow were chalk paint, and the golden tan was acrylic, but all of it was mixed with the liquid wax. If you find that your paint isn't covering your wicker colors enough, you can always use straight paint and then go back over it with the wax later. Or you can use a combination of all these techniques. Here, we're using an artist brush, and at times you might find it's easier to use different shape brushes, especially if you're trying to create a good design. But time and again, we found that using the toothbrush really made the job so much easier. When everything was dry, we gave all the turquoise areas of the chair a light brushing of celery green plus wax, which made the blue look sun-bleached instead of just one flat color. That worked really well. Plus, we brushed on extra clear wax wherever the chair would get a lot of wear and tear. We didn't use any other sealer on this project, but be sure to let your paint and wax cure for several days and keep it dry to get a nice durable finish. This whole project used not much more than 16 ounces of paint and wax combined, probably because the blue and turquoise were not that far apart in color. And we'll definitely be trying this again on baskets and tables that need rescued, and you know how that goes. Well, until next time. Be inspirational. Be wonderful. Be surprising. Be sweet. Be creative. Be astounding. Be all these things and more at SteffiMcCarthy.com.